Hi, this is Sarit Switzer, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, a podcast devoted to the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi as recorded in his most famous work, the Tanya. My hope for this show is to make these teachings accessible and relatable to the average person, regardless of prior Jewish education or affiliation. The episodes follow the prescribed daily study portions and are meant to serve as practical lessons in how to live your life as your true self and develop an authentic and powerful relationship with your Creator. I have personally experienced the effects the study of this work has had on me, and I'm excited to share what I can of this knowledge with you. So please join me on this journey of learning, self-growth, and connection with your source. Hi, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast. This is episode 193 for the 4th of Sivan in a leap year. So for the past couple of episodes, we've been discussing this idea of the Shechina, the divine indwelling, and what this means in terms of God's presence in the world. And we went on pretty much a whole long journey discussing this idea of the seeming paradox of how it is that, well, on the one hand, we say that God is everywhere and in everything, and there is no place devoid of God. There are some places that we say that God is a little bit more revealed, is a little bit more manifest and less hidden. And we discussed how this could be by really mapping out the whole outline of how the Shechina descends down here into our world. And then we talked about this very interesting blip in the system, and this was in yesterday's episode, so you can go back and listen to that if you haven't already, of how usually there's a normal chain of events of this descent of the Shechina from rung to rung throughout the levels of creation, becoming progressively more concealed, progressively more hidden and obscure. However, there was one exception to this rule, and the exception to this rule was found in the original tablets that contained on them the 10 commandments that we received on Mount Sinai, that were housed in the Holy Ark, in the first temple, in the Holy of Holies of the first temple. And so the exception to this rule was the sense that the interesting thing was that even though these tablets were physical objects made of stone, and so you would think that they should follow by natural course the natural order of creation in terms of their manifestation of godliness in descending from rung to rung, by virtue of the fact that these tablets were not ordinary physical objects, but they were actually called Maaseh Elokim. They were made by the hand of God himself, and they contained within them the entire essence. The 10 commandments contain the entire essence of the entire Torah, which, what is the entire Torah? The entire Torah is God's will and wisdom, which stems from a higher place than the Shechina itself, as we described. Then thus, these commandments, these tablets were able to manifest within them a level of the Shechina that surpassed all of those levels. So it was sort of like they were able to skip through all those levels of chain reaction throughout all the worlds and have a direct connection and a direct manifestation of the Shechina itself here in this world. So that's like a really brief overview. And again, if you want more of a detailed, in-depth, technical breakdown of all of that, please go back and listen to the last few episodes. But that's the basic idea. So this was one of the explanations as to why the first temple contained within it so many miraculous aspects that are really hard for us to imagine nowadays, because it's not anything that is related to our reality today. But like, for example, one of the miracles in the first temple was this idea of how the ark itself that contains these 10 commandments didn't take up any space. So what that means is that basically the ark was contained within the Holy of Holies, as we know, and the ark was 2.5 cubits in length, and it was right in the center of that room, right in the center of the wall. And then on either side of the ark, if you were to measure from the ark to the wall next to it, it was 10 cubits on one side, and then 10 cubits on the other side. So if you add that up, that should be 10 cubits plus 10 cubits plus 2.5 cubits. So it should be 22.5 cubits, right? But then the interesting thing was that if you actually just like measured the length of the wall itself, like in a part where the ark was not there, or like just like, without taking the ark into consideration, then it actually only measured 20 cubits. So what that basically means and what it demonstrates is that while the ark did have dimensions, it actually didn't take up any physical space. So this is just one of many examples of the miracles that happened in the original temple in Jerusalem, the first temple. So this was a really amazing thing, as you can imagine. People flocked to this temple from all over the world in recognition of the fact that there was something really special about it, and truly there was. This was a place which manifested God and godliness, and as we know it, the Shechina, in a way that nothing else did. However, alas, as we all know, that this temple was destroyed, and we no longer have it. Since then, there was a second temple, which was not nearly as miraculous as the first one, and now we have no temple at all. So the question becomes,